the so if we all agree that we do have to allocate e-flows, on what basis will they be allocated? What will be the objective? And all the e-flows, whatever very minimum allocation or start in the process that we have done, there have been some objectives which have been set for us on our behalf. And there are some publications which say that e-flows are actually a matter of societal choice. So it is we who decide how much water our rivers should have. So did we make this choice? Did we actually make this choice of having dry rivers? Probably we didn't. But so basically these choices have been made for us by governments, by private dam lobbies. And has society actually made these choices? The answer is a big no. We have not made these choices. Raviji also talked about the ecological management classes. There are some EMCs, it's a bit of a methodological technical thing, but there are a number of methodologies actually depend on ecological management class, and based on these EMCs they decide how much water the river should have. So there are A, B, C, D. Now this is very tricky business in a sense. EMCs don't just show what the status of the river is right now. They also indicate what will be the societal choice, what is the management choice that we are making for that river. So when you say EMC of C, it does not mean that a river is an ecological management class of C. For example, in Lohit Basin, Lohit is one of the free-flowing rivers in the northeast. It's a very pristine river, unpolluted, in a very beautiful form, and for that, the EMC, ecological management class decided is C. That's not the class of Lohit. That is the class we are aspiring for. And we, as in, if you go by the definitions, is a society which is aspiring for that class. So this needs to be checked. Some of the most important prayars get an EMC of D. That's a highly modified, degraded river. So is that, as we said, is that a EMC that we are aiming for? That shouldn't be an EMC which we are aiming for. If you see, these are rivers in the Upper Ganga are one of the most pristine rivers in the entire country. They have very little pollution, they are still untouched to a large extent. So, and it's very strange that we don't see any protected area, nothing which depicts a class A. That's okay. Very little class B. What we see is domination of class C and D. These are the choices which have been made for us, that rivers in Uttarakhand, in Upper Ganga, some of the most valuable, precious rivers for Indians will be managed in class D. What does this mean? This means that they will be getting an extremely low environmental flow allocation. So is this acceptable? And one of the things that e-flows primer and all is one thing, but one of the things that we are aiming for being here is that this is a very august gathering. There are people from universities, there are people from research institutions, from IIT Roorkee, if I'm not wrong. In this gathering, these things need to be raised. These are the choices which have been made on behalf of people of Uttarakhand. So, HEC report is not going to look at social aspects. WIR report completely says no to look at the social aspects. So, who is going to look at the social aspects? Are they going to be looked at into at all? Again, as Raviji said, that WIR report talks about a minimum environmental flow, and they said that this should be only for environmental purposes, nothing else. Only for environmental purposes. Now, rivers are not only for ecology. Rivers don't only mean diatoms, though they do mean that. They also mean Mahasir, they also mean, but rivers also mean riparian farming, they also mean boating, they also mean fisheries, and they also mean religious practices, especially in Ganga. I mean, if you can neglect the extremely, the most important, crucial social importance of Upper Ganga, then where are you going to look at it in the entire country, if not here? As Raviji said, there are over 200 methodologies of calculating e-flows. We should get a reality check. We are not expecting any of the civil society organizations to actually know what these methodologies are. These have been devised by experts sitting in developed countries getting highly paid for that job. This is not a civil society's job. But we need to know that, do these methodologies even try to address the problems that we have? There are only very few examples. If the research, especially the research organizations and the universities, if you take a look at the ACC report, they have used 5 methodologies. They have not sort of come down on any one methodology for recommending e-flows for Upper Ganga. They have rambled about 5 methodologies, and all of them have seriously downplayed the baseline. They have assumed the classes as D. They have used a term called Q95. This is the older version, so I won't have it. It is called a 75% of Q95 allocation. What is Q95? The flows which are exceeded 95% of the times. So 5% of times the flows, these are very low flows. 75% of that volume will be then allocated to the river. So does it respond to community needs, the methodology? Does it respond to community needs, or does it only respond to mahasir and trouts, which is good, which is very good in a way, but does it respond to any community needs about e-flows, or does it not? Does it include a multidisciplinary team of experts, not limited to the government and the dam proponents? Does it do that? Was there any open, see, and we also have to keep it in mind that now Suresh will of course be going into the details. There is something called the building block methodology, which is now said as if it's the saving grace and it's going to do everything right to all the rivers, and all the dams are going to be justified because they perform a building block methodology. Suresh and WWF has actually written a critique of it, that what the proponents claim as building block methodology is anything but that. So it's a very difficult and a very intricate sort of a trap that we can fall into. What the BBM actually does is it says that 20% of lean flow and 30% of monsoon flow, that is enough. When BBM was developed in South Africa, one of the basic things of the model was to have a multi-stakeholder platform, and each stakeholder, if I'm a fisherman, if she's a boatman, if there's someone else who's an ecologist, someone else who's an hydrologist, they tell what are the important flows. But what happens here is that one agency has 5 consultants who sit together and devise something called this BBM, call it the state-of-art methodology, and the EAC and the MOF is very happy to sanction the whole project. And even then, any methodology is only as good as it is implemented on the field, and there should be an external, it's very unclear how this and who can actually perform this role, but this role needs to be performed by someone who can actually monitor if the e-flows are being released. So also monitoring mechanisms, it's very interesting, if you read the literature which is based on monitoring of e-flows across the world, what it means is there is a group which monitors what are the benefits of e-flows. Is it actually performing all the benefits that it's supposed to have? Is the ecosystem downstream actually improving? That is the sort of monitoring. What monitoring means for us? Monitoring means to see whether the dam proponents are actually releasing the environmental flows that they ought to release. It is that basic, because they are not. Rahul is here and he will tell us about, there was this one-person High Court committee in Himachal Pradesh which was constituted to look at dams and number of issues to do with dams. It also looked at environmental flows, and it also looked at whether the dams are releasing 15% of the average annual flow or the mean or the minimum flows, if they are releasing that downstream. The committee visited 11 dams under construction. 11 dams for 15%. 15% is extremely low. It's lowest, it has no scientific basis. None of the dams, none of the 11 dams were releasing even this 15% flow downstream. So that's the sort of, there's also Yamuna which is supposed to, at Tazewala they're supposed to leave 10 cumecs for downstream. They're not doing that. Each riparian state, Haryana, Delhi, they're releasing peace